I want you to take a second and just picture your most prized possessions.
Yeah, could be your birth certificates,
Yeah.
maybe some of your grandmother's vintage jewelry.
Right, or even a stack of emergency cash, highly sensitive business documents. Right now, they are probably tucked away inside a heavy metal box in your house or your office.
And you probably sleep soundly thinking those items are completely secure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we are going to challenge that comfort. We really need to determine if that safe is actually protecting your valuables.
Or if it's just, a psychological security blanket providing this really dangerous false confidence.
It's a question most people literally never think to ask until it is way too late.
Right, because we operate under this collective assumption that because a box is heavy and it's made of metal and has this complex-looking digital keypad.
That it's inherently impenetrable.
Exactly. But the reality of physical security, especially the economics driving the consumer safe market, is, well, it's far more complex.
And surprisingly fragile, which is exactly the mission of this deep dive.
We are going to deconstruct the engineering, the marketing, and the very real vulnerabilities of home and business safes.
We're pulling all of this from a fascinating stack of sources. We've got veteran locksmith training manuals, professional security provider guidelines.
Real-world bypass tests on big box hardware store safes.
Yeah, and the actual field notes of expert safe technicians, which are wild to read. But before we totally dismantle the illusion of the modern consumer safe, if you are already mentally auditing your own security setup,
And realizing you might need a serious upgrade.
right, you should call West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040. They are fast, reliable, professional, and they serve all of Los Angeles.
They boast glowing 5-star reviews for a reason.
They really do. They handle everything from emergency safe lockouts to high security lock installation, smart locks, even car key replacements. They're available 24/7 to keep your home, your business, and your vehicle legitimately secure. Again, that is West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040.
Having a reliable, vetted professional on speed dial is just essential, particularly when you start to understand the specific mechanical vulnerabilities we're about to get into.
So let's start with the consumer psychology driving the safe market, because the field notes from these veteran technicians point out a glaring irony.
Locksmiths don't just sell heavy metal boxes.
Right. They sell the feeling of security.
And big box retail stores understand this perfectly. They know that consumers, equate weight and modern aesthetics with safety.
So a homeowner goes out, buys an entry-level safe, wrestles 150 pounds of metal into their master bedroom closet,
And considers the job done.
completely unaware of how vulnerable that specific unit actually is.
The economics of retail hardware stores play a huge role here. Retailers do not want to stock and ship 800-pound solid steel burglar safes.
But shipping weight alone would just destroy their profit margins.
Exactly. So instead, they sell safes engineered to look imposing, but they're manufactured with incredibly thin metal skins.
Wrapped around heavy, inexpensive materials like drywall.
Or fireboard. It gives the illusion of heft. But if we look at the bypass tests documented in the training guidelines, that illusion completely shatters.
Actually scary.
It is. Certain highly popular entry-level electronic safes, like specific Sentry models that are widely sold at retail hardware stores.
The ones everyone has.
Right. They can be opened by professionals in less than 5 seconds with zero signs of forced entry.
The bypass mechanisms on these entry-level units are a perfect example of how cost-cutting totally compromises security.
Often it just involves a simple rare earth magnet.
Yeah, placed in a specific spot on the exterior of the door. The magnet pulls the internal solenoid.
Which is the little electromagnetic pin that blocks the locking bolts.
Right. It pulls it down without the user ever touching the keypad. The safe simply unlocks.
It is a complete circumvention of the electronic security.
And even if a bypass isn't used, the actual anatomy of these cheap electronic safes is so heavily prone to failure.
The manufacturing tolerances on retail safes are remarkably loose. The field notes detail numerous lockouts caused entirely by the degradation of cheap internal components.
There's that one specific incident in the technician reports involving a customer locked out of their retail safe.
Oh, that one is crazy. The technician arrived and found that it wasn't just a dead battery.
The internal plastic housing that held the batteries.
Made of this really cheap, brittle thermoplastic.
It had completely disintegrated over time.
Just from ambient temperature changes and off-gassing from the batteries themselves.
The wires had actually detached from the contact points. So the technician had to go out to his van, retrieve a working battery pack from a commercial display safe.
Strip the wires, bypass the broken housing entirely.
and manually touch the contacts to the exposed wires of the customer's safe, just to deliver enough voltage to actuate the solenoid when the correct code was punched in.
You buy a safe, assuming it is a generational investment, and the internal plastic literally crumbles within a few years.
Which naturally leads consumers to rely on the physical override key, right?
Right. Most of these inexpensive electronic safes come with a backup key, and the prevailing assumption is that if the electronics fail, the key will grant emergency access.
But the locksmith manuals highlight this as one of the most pervasive myths in the consumer market.
On a significant number of these popular retail safes, that physical key is not an emergency override.
It is actually a secondary lockout feature.
Yes, it is a vital mechanical distinction. The tailpiece of that physical key mechanism is designed to physically block the primary locking bolts, not retract them.
So if you give your digital code to a contractor or an employee, but you temporarily want to revoke their access, you turn the physical key.
Exactly. Once turned, a steel cam rotates right into the path of the bolt work.
Even if someone enters the perfectly correct digital code and the solenoid fires, the bolts physically cannot retract.
So if your electronics die and you reach for that key thinking it will bypass the dead keypad,
You quickly realize it does absolutely nothing to help you get inside.
it is the definition of false confidence. You are holding a key to a door that requires a functioning motor to open.
This misunderstanding of how safe mechanics actually work leads us directly into what might be the most dangerous conflation consumers make.
The difference between fire-resistant safes and burglary-rated safes.
Yes, consumers constantly conflate fire resistance with burglary resistance. They just assume a safe is a safe.
Let's break down the physical differences, starting with fire safes.
A fire-resistant safe basically has one primary engineering objective,
To keep the internal temperature below 350 degrees Fahrenheit,
which is roughly the point where paper documents and cash begin to char and combust.
they're essentially constructed like heavy-duty thermos bottles. The walls are not solid steel.
They're just two very thin sheets of sheet metal encompassing a thick layer of fire-retardant material.
Often a proprietary mix of gypsum and moisture-releasing chemicals. When the exterior of the safe heats up during a fire, that internal material releases steam.
Which actively cools the interior compartment. And they are rated by independent laboratories for specific durations and temperatures.
Typically ranging from 30 minutes to 2 hours.
And this rating is incredibly relevant depending on your geographic location. The security guidelines heavily emphasize the unique environmental risks of living in Southern California.
Right, in Los Angeles, you are not just preparing for a standard residential kitchen fire.
You are mitigating the risk of severe, sustained, high-heat wildfires. Having a true 1-hour or 2-hour fire-rated safe.
Like the US Can Designer Series highlighted in the training materials.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical for preserving birth certificates, deeds, and cash.
But the critical vulnerability arises when a burglar encounters that same fire safe.
Because a purely fire-resistant safe is engineered to fight thermal energy, not kinetic attacks.
That exterior metal shell we mentioned is often only 14 or 16 gauge steel.
It is remarkably thin. It only exists to hold the fire-retardant drywall in place.
So a determined intruder with standard garage tools?
A heavy pry bar, an axe, or a simple angle grinder. They can peel back the side of a purely fire-rated safe in a matter of minutes. The fire material offers zero resistance to a crowbar.
Realizing a burglar could tear through your fire safe with a common hand tool is an uncomfortable wake-up call.
It really is. If you are mentally calculating the value of the watches, jewelry, or precious metals sitting inside a basic fire safe in your closet right now, you do not have to fix it alone. West Point Locksmith is available 24/7 to help you audit your physical security and install the proper equipment.
Whether you need an upgrade to a true high-security burglar safe, smart locks for your commercial building, or heavy-duty vault services.
Their 5-star team in Los Angeles is just a call away at 310-295-4040. Do not leave high-value physical assets in what is essentially a thermos. Call West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040.
For physical assets, you require a burglary-rated safe, which is a fundamentally different piece of engineering.
We are talking about solid steel construction, heavily reinforced door frames, and complex internal relocking triggers.
But to navigate the upgrade, you have to decode the industry rating system.
Specifically, the TL ratings. TL stands for tool resistant.
When you see a high security rating like TL15 or TL30, it indicates the safe has survived a grueling independent testing process by underwriters' laboratories.
The testers are literally given the exact engineering blueprints of the safe beforehand, allowing them to map out its weak points.
They are then given a vast arsenal of hand and power tools: carbide drills, abrasive cutting wheels, sledgehammers, power saws.
And the numbers, 15 or 30, refer to the networking time the safe can withstand an attack on the door or front face.
Networking time is a crucial concept here. The stopwatch only runs while the tool is actively biting into the metal.
Right, if the tester stops to change a broken drill bit, switch tools, or check the blueprints.
The clock stops. Therefore, a safe that survives a 15-minute TL rating has often withstood hours of gross attack time in the laboratory.
In a real-world residential or commercial burglary, where an intruder lacks blueprints, specialized carbide tools, and time, a TL15 or TL30 rating presents an almost insurmountable obstacle.
The construction quality required to pass those tests is remarkable. The industry testing guidelines point to heavy-duty options like the AMSEC BFX series,
Which utilizes up to half an inch of solid American-made steel plate in the door.
They also highlight Holland safes, specifically their Republic and Crescent shield lines, which incorporate intense anti-drilling pleats.
An anti-drill plate is a piece of hardened steel, sometimes infused with materials like manganese or embedded with industrial ball bearings,
When a burglar's drill bit hits that plate, the ball bearings spin with the bit.
effectively snapping the drill bit into pieces and stopping the attack cold.
The metallurgical differences are vast, but once you commit to the heavy steel, you are faced with what the industry calls the great safe debate.
Choosing between a mechanical dial and an electronic keypad.
Let's analyze the mechanical tolerances of both, starting with the classic mechanical dial.
These are the gold standard for long-term, multi-generational durability. There are no batteries to replace, no wires to corrode.
And no circuit boards susceptible to electromagnetic interference or power surges. They are completely impervious to electronic hacking.
But they demand precision. Under the adrenaline spike of a home intrusion, spinning a combination dial perfectly left, right, and left to the exact hash marks can be a slow process.
And highly prone to error. That operational friction is precisely why electronic and biometric locks dominate the modern market.
You enter a 6-digit code or scan a fingerprint, the solenoid fires, and the bolts retract in under 2 seconds.
The convenience factor ensures that the user will actually lock the safe daily, rather than leaving it open out of sheer laziness.
However, that convenience introduces digital vulnerabilities. You are at the mercy of battery degradation, potential circuit board failures, and keypad wear and tear.
If the numbers 1, 4, 7, and 9 on your keypad are visibly worn down from daily use.
An intruder already possesses the digits to your combination and merely has to guess the sequence.
So establishing the upgrade trigger is pretty straightforward.
If you are currently storing high-value jewelry, precious metals, or critical business assets in a sub-200-pound retail brand safe, it is time to upgrade to a burglary-rated unit.
Furthermore, if you own an electronic safe and the keypad is emitting double beeps, the battery compartment feels loose, or the bolt retraction sounds sluggish.
Do not wait for a total failure. Preventative maintenance is vital, because a professional lockout service is a complex operation.
But before we discuss lockout procedures, we really have to address the logistical reality of how these safes are installed.
Because the highest-rated TL30 safe in the world is entirely useless if it falls victim to the carryout problem.
It's a glaring oversight seen constantly in the field notes. People spend thousands of dollars on a high-security safe.
Load it into the back of their SUV and use a dolly to muscle it into their master bedroom.
They completely ignore the basic physics of the situation.
If you and a buddy can carry the safe up the stairs, 2 motivated burglars can easily carry it right back down the stairs, throw it in the back of a stolen truck, and drive away.
They do not need to defeat the lock in your hallway. They just steal the entire box and take it to a warehouse where they have infinite time and heavy machinery to cut it open.
This is why anchoring the safe is a non-negotiable step in professional security.
The guidelines mandate bolting a safe directly into the concrete foundation of the structure using heavy-duty wedge anchors.
Yet, it remains one of the most frequently skipped steps by homeowners who don't want to damage their flooring.
Once a heavy safe is bolted to a concrete slab with specialized steel anchors, it ceases to be a piece of furniture and becomes a structural fixture of the building.
It entirely negates the carryout threat. Placement within the home is equally critical. Storing a safe in the master bedroom closet is a severe tactical error.
The master bedroom is universally the first room a burglar targets, and the closet is the most predictable hiding spot.
The guidelines suggest forcing the intruder to expend their most valuable resource, which is time, just trying to locate the safe.
Concealed floor safes, set directly into the concrete foundation and covered by an area rug, offer excellent covert security.
Wall safes, provided they are securely anchored directly into the structural studs and hidden behind artwork or heavy mirrors, are highly effective for smaller assets.
But suppose you execute everything perfectly. You purchase a heavy TL-rated burglary safe, anchor it into the concrete, and conceal it beautifully.
And then, human error intervenes. You forget the combination, or a component inside the mechanical lock fails, and the dial jams.
You are officially locked out of your own fortress.
The immediate instinct for many people is destructive panic. They head to the garage for a cutting torch or a heavy angle grinder.
The manuals explicitly warn against this DIY approach.
Taking an angle grinder to a safe almost guarantees the destruction of the contents. The friction generates intense internal heat,
Igniting paper documents and melting down the very valuables you were trying to protect.
Professional technicians approach a lockout as a surgical operation, starting with non-destructive techniques.
Mechanical safe manipulation is a profound technical skill. It relies on the simple fact that physical manufacturing is never geometrically perfect.
Inside a standard mechanical combination lock, there are typically 3 or 4 metal discs called wheel packs.
Each wheel has a notch, or a gate. Above the wheels sits a metal bar called a fence.
To open the safe, all the gates must align perfectly so the fence can drop down into them.
When a master locksmith applies turning pressure to the external dial, they are actively forcing that internal fence against the edges of the wheels.
Because the machine wheels are never perfectly microscopically round, one wheel will always rub against the fence slightly more than the others.
This creates binding friction.
The technician slowly spins the dial, feeling for the microscopic changes in resistance or listening for the faint acoustic changes of the metal components interacting.
They map out the precise numerical locations where that friction alters, identifying the gates one by one.
Using highly sensitive electronic amplifiers, or just extreme tactile sensitivity, they can decode the combination entirely by touch and sound, opening the heavy steel door without leaving a single scratch on the paint.
But high-security locks are engineered to fight back. Advanced mechanical locks utilize anti-picking technologies, like spool pins.
A spool pin is machined to look exactly like a tiny spool of sewing thread.
If a manipulator tries to lift or bind that pin incorrectly, the fat top edge of the spool catches on the internal housing of the lock.
It produces a distinct click, tricking the technician into thinking they have successfully set the pin, when in reality, the lock is intentionally jammed.
When non-destructive bypasses are thwarted by these advanced countermeasures, or if a digital lock has completely short-circuited, professionals transition to calculated destructive entry.
This does not involve swinging a sledgehammer. It is an exercise in precision geometry.
Armed with the exact blueprints of the safe model, the technician uses a specialized drill rig to bore a tiny hole, often no larger than 1/4 of an inch, through the hardened steel and anti-drill plates.
Aiming for a very specific internal vulnerability, like the solenoid wiring or the locking bolt chassis.
They then feed a borescope, a tiny illuminated fiber optic camera, through that drilled hole.
They can literally look inside the internal cavity of the lock, visually identify the wheel packs, and align the gates manually using specialized wire tools.
Once the mechanism is tripped and the door swings open, the technician taps the drill hole, fills it with a hardened steel taper pin, installs a brand new lock.
And the safe is returned to its fully secure operational state. It is precision engineering countering precision engineering.
It perfectly illustrates why you rely on a trained professional rather than resorting to brute force. The mechanics of security require a deep structural understanding of the vulnerabilities at play.
We have covered a vast amount of technical ground today. To synthesize this deep dive into actionable intelligence, we have a rapid-fire checklist.
You need to evaluate your own safe today and ask yourself these 4 specific questions to determine if your security infrastructure matches your actual risk level.
Number 1. Is your safe securely anchored with heavy-duty wedge anchors deep into a concrete foundation? Remember, if you can wiggle it, a dedicated burglar can steal it.
Number 2. Do you know definitively if your safe is strictly fire-rated, or is it officially burglary-rated?
A fire safe is a thermos designed for heat. A burglary safe is a hardened fortress designed for kinetic attack. Do not store high-value assets in a thermos.
Number 3, are you relying on an entry-level, big-box brand electronic safe that a professional or an intruder who watched a 5-minute online video can bypass with a magnet in a matter of seconds without leaving a mark?
And finally, number 4. Does your safe's fire rating actually offer enough duration to stand up to the severe, sustained high-heat wildfire risks specifically present in Southern California?
If you found yourself mentally answering no or I don't know to any of those questions, your security perimeter has a serious vulnerability.
And that is exactly why you need to bring in the professionals. We're pointing you to West Point Locksmith one last time. You can reach their team at 310-295-4040.
They possess deep technical expertise in keeping Los Angeles secure, offering 24/7 availability for your home, your business, and your vehicles.
With their consistent 5-star reviews, you know you are getting fast, reliable, and discreet service. Do not wait for a catastrophic break-in or an infuriating lockout to audit your hardware. Call West Point Locksmith at 310-295-4040.
True security is about replacing the illusion of safety with genuine, tested resilience.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to mull over a final thought regarding the mechanics we discussed.
We detailed how a master manipulator can map the interior of a combination lock entirely by feel.
Listening to the microscopic friction of the metal, the binding of the wheels, and the tiny acoustic shifts of the pins. Because manufacturing is never perfect, every single lock has its own unique microscopic imperfections.
So what is the unique mechanical song that your own safe sings?
The next time you walk into your office or closet and spin that heavy dial, listen closely to the metal. Feel the slight drags and clicks under your fingers, because those internal mechanisms might just be whispering their deepest secrets to anyone highly trained enough to hear them.